Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been an ongoing franchise since 1998 and has evolved from a dark manga about a lonely teenage boy who likes board games to one of the most successful trading card games ever released. One of the most diverse ways to enjoy this franchise, however, comes in the form of video games, which have varied mechanics, stories, and way to ogle cool monster designs. So let's take a walk through different kinds of games that exist throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's 20-year history, going from 1998 all the way through to 2021. And let's see exactly how we got here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters was released on December 16th, 1998, and would be the first video game for the franchise that would begin to resemble the planned final product game meant to be sold to Japanese children everywhere. With the release of OCG Pack Volume 1 just around the corner in February, and with Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie releasing in theaters the following spring, this soon-to-be massive property was beginning to take final shape. Bandai was originally sought to produce the physical cards for this game, and they did release a total of 3 waves of cards based very closely on the card designs from the original manga and anime, often referred to as Season 0, and put out a final wave of product that were card-ass stickers based on the card designs. However, eventually this license agreement faded, and Konami, who had not only been producing the video games for the franchise thus far, but also printing their own promotional cards with a much different design from Bandai's look, would soon take over on development for the card game as a whole. This game was developed following loosely the rules of the game as presented in the ongoing manga series Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist, as well as featuring cards exclusively from the run up to about the end of the Duelist Kingdom arc. The rule set established in this game would go on to inform many of the next video game entries in the franchise, and it is probably most akin to what the general population believe the rules of this game are. Summoning any old monster from your hand, randomly slapping cards on top of each other for random fusion monstrosities, and placing monsters in attack or defense position. In terms of gameplay, it basically works like this. Each player begins with 8,000 life points, and if those drop to 0, you lose. You can play 1 monster from your hand per turn, and there's a number of spell cards available for you to use, also can only be used once per turn. Each turn a card must attack or switch to defense position, or you can choose to select the monster and leave it in defense position if it was already there. Several of the designs for monsters and spells in the game would go on to become some of the earliest cards printed for the OCG, and had a total of about 350 cards for you to collect. Decks must consist of exactly 40 cards and no other number, which is also pretty common of other early Yu-Gi-Oh! Titles. The game itself doesn't have a limit on how many of one copy of a card can be in your deck, which potentially means you could cheat yourself into 40 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon or whatever, and just steamroll your opponent. But the game also has a strange win condition, which is that if a duelist has 0 cards in hand when their turn starts, then whoever has the higher life total wins the duel. Another way this is described in the manga is someone who doesn't play a card loses. This happens obviously from having no additional cards to draw, but it differs from the real game as a duelist who runs out of cards typically just loses no matter the condition. The game also had fusion summoning, although not the same kind as activating polymerization. This was as simple as slapping one card on top of another, and if it was a legitimate combination, then a new monster would appear on the field. These cards weren't permanent, and would not be in your collection after the duel, but it was a good way to force out a much stronger monster, or Shadow Spectre, to get the edge on your opponent. Each duel nets you a card, and defeating each duelist in a stage 5 times moves you on to the next stage with more challenging duelists waiting for you. Hilariously, you cannot actually just enter a deck edit mode in the game until you've won 10 duels, netting you a total of 50 cards collected. Like literally, if you try to enter the versus mode or the trade menu, you get a text box from Taya, or I guess she was just Anzu at this time, saying, "Lol, come back when you've got 50 cards, loser." But not if you want to see your records, you know, in case you want to remember how many times you've lost to Tristan Taylor. Or I guess he was Honda at this point. In terms of a story, the game asks you to face and defeat several of the main and side characters from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist manga. Some of these duelists include iconic characters like Joey, Weevil, Seto Kaiba, and of course, the eponymous Maximilian Pegasus. And also Simon Murin, a man we'll be seeing a lot of over the course of this retrospective. The final character you can face is Dark Yugi, who remains the very edgy and mysterious spirit in the puzzle as opposed to the upstanding good guy from the soon-to-come anime. And honestly, that's really all there is in terms of a story for the anime card-based video game. There is a versus mode in the game which allows you to use the link cable to duel against your friends, family, strangers, and even your rivals. I think the coolest part about this, however, was that Konami held an official tournament for this game that ran between February 1st and 14th, 1999, and winners of these tournaments received special secret cards that could be accessed only by placing in one of these tournaments, which also came printed on steel as physical emblems of the cards you won for your game. Speaking of these cards, Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are famous for including promotional cards in them. In fact, Konami does the same for any kind of event even now. The promotional cards you could get with the game were randomly assorted from a set of 20. The same set of cards that were also used as promo cards for the very first Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game, Capsule Monster Breed and Battle. These cards were part of a special line of promo cards that were not legal for official play, as they used very different designs from the actual playing card designs they would end up using. Additionally, the prize cards for the national tournament held for Duel Monsters did resemble the design template that would be used for official play. The major difference is that these cards were printed on steel instead of on paper, obviously. But most of the prize cards for this tournament were also given out as normal monsters, but most of them would see full realization in the game as ritual monsters. Such monsters include War Lion as well as Zira the Mant. Summoning types didn't really exist yet, so this makes a lot of sense, but it is a fun fact to look back on. The presentation itself is also quite charming, filled with early representations of the famous monsters we would come to love as part of the franchise, and although the game was never depicted in true color due to the limitations of the Game Boy's color wheel, which is black, less black, and 7 shades of green, we see really evocative designs that clearly denote each and every artwork for the cards being used. You could use the Super Game Boy or just a Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance to get some color for the game, but this game was certainly not developed with colors in mind. The game even had 2 official guides printed, and these weren't just strategy guides. They contained information about how progress in the game, as well as detailed information about how and where different cards dropped from different duelists. It also contained the secret of how to open the elusive password menu, which would allow you to input a password and put in some kana to receive a new card. However, not even the password menu could get you to the elusive top prize cards from the national tournament. Guide 2 basically provided similar info as far as I can tell, but each one did give a new password for new cards that you could get. This game was the first in the quadrilogy of Duel Monsters games, which largely do not follow the rules of the official card game, and are more interested in letting you duel different characters from the anime and manga, using iconic monsters from that material. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters was the only game released for the Game Boy, as all other titles we will be looking at released for the Game Boy Color. Honestly, it would have been so cool to be a Japanese teenager at this specific point in time. I can imagine myself losing hours to this game, trying to get a really good deck, and maybe even try to enter that national tournament. But alas, the game remains an incredible relic of times gone by. The final takeaway here is that for a game that is so rudimentary in its design and execution, it was surprisingly satisfying for a Game Boy game and certainly created a strong design aesthetic for the Wizards and Warriors style monsters being used. In the manga, the game is pitched as 2 wizards facing off against one another, casting spells and summoning monsters, and that's basically what the game feels like. Ultimately, this game still has an incredible charm to it, and while it certainly isn't indicative of how the game would function even 2 short years later, it definitely captures the spirit of the wondrous Magic the Gathering clone invented by Kazuki Takahashi. I'll see you in the next one, everybody.